Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
I stood frozen, my breath caught in my chest, staring at the photos spread out before me. Julia in her red dress, smiling that smile I once thought was mine alone. But it wasn't. Not anymore. "Stan," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Are you sure? This is my wife." His reply hit like a thunderclap. "I'm sorry, Tom, but there's no mistake. I've seen her before, many times." The walls of my life crumbled in an instant. The woman I trusted for 23 years wasn't who I thought she was. How do you recover when the truth is this devastating? "It's time to get ready to go, isn't it?" Tom asked. "For the last time, I don't want to go. I don't know anyone who will be there, and I don't want to spend the whole night talking to strangers. They're your friends. Why not go without me?" Julia replied. Tom sighed and looked at his wife. "Honey, it's a welcome home party, and I want you to meet the friends I grew up with. Most of them are still close to me, and we'll be seeing each other often. Please just change and let's go. You've talked to so many people before when you were running your business. Why is this different? I know you can do it. I've gone to many events with you where I knew very few people. Come on." "Fine, but you owe me," Julia said. Tom felt excited about the party that evening. It would be his first big gathering with old friends since he and Julia had sold their businesses and returned to Missouri. He had sold a computer service company in LA, and Julia sold her catering business. They made a good amount from the sales and decided to come back to the Midwest where they had grown up. Tom looked forward to the move more than Julia did, partly because her hometown was several hours away. They had enough savings to enjoy life without working again and planned to travel a lot. Their children were in college, and there was nothing stopping them. All they needed to do was find a house, move in, and start their adventures. Tom's dreams had come true. About a week after they returned, Tom was in a local coffee shop when he bumped into one of his best friends from high school. When Jerry found out Tom and Julia were back in town, he was thrilled. "Wow! With you back, all our classmates will be nearby. We can golf, fish, and hang out like old times, right? I need to tell the others. Why haven't you called us yet?" After they exchanged numbers a few days later, Jerry called to invite them to a welcome home party. When Julia came downstairs, Tom stood and admired her. She looked beautiful, and he was truly impressed. He smiled and led her out the door to their car. His parents didn't even notice as they kept watching their favorite show on TV. The party was lively when they arrived, a little late as usual. Julia liked to get there at least 30 minutes after it began, which sometimes frustrated Tom, but he had learned to accept it. They entered the room, and everyone turned to look at them. Jerry welcomed them warmly, introducing them to the guests. "Okay, everyone, the guests of honor are finally here. Many of you know Tom from school, but not everyone knows this lovely lady with him. This is Julia, Tom's wife of 23 years. Now let's celebrate and reconnect with old friends." Jerry took them to the patio where the drinks and snacks were, and Tom and Julia moved through the crowd. After a while, Julia went to find the bathroom. Tom stayed by the bar and noticed Stan approaching with a big smile. After greeting each other, they started to catch up. Suddenly, Stan's expression changed. "What's going on?" he asked. Tom looked over and saw Julia talking with two other women. "Who's that? What's the problem?" "That woman. She used to be around when we had meetings in LA. "I wonder what she's doing here," Stan said, glancing nervously. Tom frowned. "I recognize her, but don't know her. Should I introduce you?" Stan shook his head. "Let's wait until she moves on so we can find out more." As they talked, Tom's mind wandered, curious about the new dynamics forming within their friend group. She never rushed her clients, but worked with a few men at a time. She usually didn't stay much past 9:30 because she said she needed to return to her husband. Sometimes, she would be very helpful and could gather a large audience on her own. I am not sure what she made for the food, but just the entertainment fees likely made her quite successful. Tom felt surprised and uneasy when Stan started sharing his stories from LA. He stared at Stan in shock and asked, "What? Are you serious?" Stan looked at Tom and said, "Hey, buddy, what's wrong? You seem a bit weak all of a sudden." Tom took Stan's arm and led him to two empty chairs before collapsing into one. He felt like he was struggling to breathe and couldn't quite understand what he was hearing. After a moment, he licked his lips and asked, "Stan, are you talking about the woman in the red dress?" Stan paused before sitting next to Tom and replied, "Of course, who else would I mean? We know all the other women who were there. Most of them have never left the state except for family vacations. Do you know her too?" Tom licked his lips again and said, "Stan, are you sure about what you just said? Do you have any proof?" "Well, yes. I saw her 3 or 4 times a year for over 10 years. When Margie and I divorced, we had private investigator video from California that was used as evidence. I think she was one of the women mentioned, but it's been so long I can't really remember. Do you think I'm wrong? I'm a married man. Do you really think I would keep something like that around? What's the big deal anyway?" "Oh, no," replied Tom. "Stan, that woman is my wife, Julia. She ran Crystal's Catering for over 15 years. She just sold it when we decided to retire and move back home. I almost had to talk her into quitting. I can't believe. But you know, she would never show me that side of her after catering a big event. She always said she was too tired. I don't understand." Stan looked at his friend with worry as he saw Tom seem to lose hope. Finally, he said, "I'm sorry. I just didn't know." The two friends sat quietly watching Julia as she mingled in the crowd. Tom noticed she talked more with the men than the women, which made him anxious after what Stan had told him. What should he do? If he talked to Julia, she might get upset, and then he would have problems too. But if she had been untrustworthy, what could he do? Stan sat with Tom, deep in thought. After a moment, he said, "Hey, Tom, I may be able to help you. Some people from the LA office had cameras at the meetings. Let me see what I can find out. If they have any pictures, I could ask them to send them to me. I could say I think Crystal is back in town and want to check before I meet her. Would that work for you?" Tom nodded in agreement. The rest of the evening was tough for Tom. Eventually, it got late enough that he felt they could head home without raising too many questions. He gathered Julia to leave. When she saw him, she asked, "Tom, what's wrong? You look a bit off." Tom replied, "No, Julie, I've just been feeling worse as the evening goes on. I want to get home and rest." In the days that followed, it was hard for Tom to stay calm with Julia. He knew he needed to act normally, but it was tough. Doubt and fear troubled him, making it difficult for him to eat. Even small things about Julia annoyed him, leading him to be harsh at times and then quickly apologize. Finally, the Friday after the party, Stan called. "Hey, Tom, why don't you come to the country club tomorrow and play a round of golf? A group of us usually meet on Saturday mornings, and we'd love for you to join us. I have a few things to talk about with you, including some old photos we mentioned at the party." Tom felt uneasy, but knew he needed to learn the truth. "Okay. Does 9:30 work?" Julia walked in just as he said this and asked, "9:30 for what, dear?" Tom looked at her and replied, "Stan and some of the others want me to join them at the club tomorrow for some golf. I told him I would. That's all right, isn't it?" Julia smiled and said, "Of course, dear. You used to play all the time. I know you must miss it. I'll be okay here with your mother." When Tom got to the club, he found Stan waiting for him in the lounge. After exchanging greetings, Stan handed Tom a big box. "I'm really sorry, Tom. I opened these pictures when they arrived on Friday, and it's Julia. I have about 30 or 40 prints and 3 DVDs. They recorded some of the gatherings and watched them. The quality is nearly professional. I shouldn't have looked, but I couldn't stop myself. I'm really sorry." Tom raised his hand to stop Stan and clenched his teeth as he replied, "It's not your fault. I had no clue about what she was doing. I thought we had a strong relationship and she never refused me except for those nights she came home late. I just can't understand this. By the way, do you know a good divorce lawyer? I can't live with what she's done if that really was her." "Yes, Tom, I know a good one. She's actually a member of the club and quite skilled. She helped Margie when she divorced me 7 years ago. I wonder if she still has any files related to Julie or previous investigations. Let's see if she's available today. Maybe she can help you. She and I have a past, and I'm not really one of her favorite people." The two men walked through the clubhouse toward the area where players were waiting for the first tee. Stan smiled and said, "You're in luck, Tom. There she is. Come on." Stan led Tom to a well-dressed, confident woman who looked to be in her mid-50s. When she saw him, her expression changed to a frown. Stan introduced them, saying, "Sally, this is Tom Jennings, an old friend of mine. I thought you might be able to help him. He thinks he may need your assistance." Sally stood and watched Tom for a moment before turning to Stan. "Knowing you, I'm not sure I want to help any of your friends. What's going on with him?" Stan raised his hands in a defensive gesture and said, "Hey, Sally, I made a mistake, but I owe Tom. He's one of my best friends. Would you at least consider talking to him before you decide? I'm not sure, but if you have any old files that could be useful, it might really help him. I think one of the people involved was his wife." As Stan spoke, Sally's face showed her irritation. She was about to respond, but Stan quickly added, "No, Sally, I didn't know it was Tom's wife. I just met her at a party recently. She and Tom moved here from LA, where she ran a catering company. Tom had no idea until I mentioned it. I think I can provide some information that might help you understand." Sally looked thoughtfully at Tom. Finally, she turned to him and said, "Come with me. Let's find a place where we can talk privately." They found a quiet area with chairs in the lobby, and she sat down. Tom took a seat next to her. Looking at him, Sally began, "Tom, my first instinct is to say I can't take your case. I have known Stan for many years, and I can't trust him. Most of his friends seem to be the same way. Now tell me why you think I should take your case and convince me that you need my help." She looked at her watch. "I have only a little time before my next meeting." Tom looked at Sally and said, "I guess I'm just a typical husband. I spent a lot of time building my business, leaving my wife to manage everything at home. When our youngest started school, she got bored and took a job at a catering company. When the owner wanted to sell, we bought it, and my wife began running it. The business grew quickly, and she became very successful. Sadly, that success also meant she worked long hours, and I thought our relationship was suffering because of it. I know what kind of person Stan is, but he has always been honest with me. I'm not worried about leaving my wife alone with him because I trust him. I helped him out of a tough spot years ago, and ever since then, he has always treated me well." Sally's eyes widened as she recognized the name. "Are you the one who helped Stan when some boys were bothering a girl at a party?" Tom smiled slightly, looking off into the distance. He sighed at the memory. "Yeah, that was me. I couldn't just watch those boys mistreating a girl. I was really worried for her safety. I still think about my own daughter, and I hope someone would help her if she needed it." Sally smiled back at him. "Well, Tom, I don't care if you're friends with Stan. I will take your case, and you will have my full support. That girl was my younger sister, and I have always been grateful to you for your bravery that night. We owe you for that." Sally looked into Tom's eyes with a determined expression. "Now, let's look at the information Stan shared this morning and decide what we need to do to help you. As Stan mentioned, I might have some helpful information, but I can't use a lot of it unless his ex-wife agrees. I will have my assistant start working on that on Monday." Tom and Sally were still talking when they called her for her tea time. She glanced at him and quickly wrote something on a piece of paper she had picked up from the front desk. She handed Tom the paper and her pen and said, "Quick, Tom, sign this hiring agreement and give me $10 for a retainer. You need to go home or somewhere else now. Can I trust you to stay calm? Call my office Monday afternoon for an appointment, and we will tell you what we have and what we need to do for your case. I have to ask, if your wife really did this, is there any chance you can work things out? Please think about that before we move forward. Sally, there's no way I can stay with her. Just thinking about what she did during our marriage makes me feel awful. I want to get things moving as soon as we can." For the rest of the weekend, Tom was moody and not very friendly to Julia. Even his parents noticed the tension between them. Finally, on Sunday night when they were getting ready for bed, Julia asked, "Tom, what's wrong? Are you still upset because I didn't want to go to your friend's party? You've been in a bad mood all weekend and I'm getting tired of it. Your mom asked me at lunch if we were having problems." Tom looked at Julia and sighed. She flinched when she saw his tight jaw. She was about to say something when he spoke first. "Julia, I'm not sure if anything is really wrong. I heard some things at the party that are bothering me. Some guys were saying things about someone I've known for a long time." If what I heard is true, I don't want to be around them, and I don't know how to handle this. Well, why not talk to them and find out what is truly happening? It's not fair to take it out on your family, is it? Tom sighed and replied, I know you are right, and I should talk to them. But if what I heard is true, it will ruin my friendship with them. I want to be sure before I get too upset. I will speak to a couple of people on Monday to see what they say. Then I will update you, okay? Julia smiled, but when she tried to move closer, he stepped back and turned away. I'm sorry, but I'm just overwhelmed right now, and I can't connect. I apologize. Tears streamed down Julia's cheeks as Tom rejected her again. She began to worry that she had upset him. His words echoed in her mind, making her more anxious. He usually shared his feelings, and this was troubling. On Monday afternoon, Tom called Sally as planned. She said she could share some information related to Stan's divorce with him. They decided to meet for lunch and then go to Sally's office to review the details and discuss what to do next. They kept their lunch conversation light and avoided the topic of Tom's worries. However, once they returned to the office, Sally sat at her desk and looked serious. Tom, this isn't good. The pictures and the report show that Stan was linked to a woman named Crystal and others when he was in L.A. The report mentions her real name was Julia Jorgensen, and she managed Crystal's catering. There were other people Stan was connected with, some in L.A. and a few in different cities, including here. Crystal and Tom only met in Los Angeles. The catering business was just a cover for something else. Tom felt a knot in his stomach as he sat in his chair. I can't believe this. Julia's last name was Jorgensen. I had no idea she was still using it. I gave her money to buy the business, but I wasn't involved aside from having my lawyer check the papers. I can't believe she used her last name on the documents. We had been married for about 9 years when she took over her old boss's place. Would it help if I looked for the legal papers? No, Tom. The pictures and the report should be enough. But it might be a good idea to get checked for health reasons if you haven't done so already. Tom's face grew cold for a moment as he replied, I thought about those tests right after I found out about Julia's job. I had them done that following Monday. They came back clear, but I will need more tests for a while to be sure. I asked Stan if he worried about health risks, and he said one of Crystal's strict rules was that everyone used protection. No one could get close to her or anyone working for her without it. I felt relieved to hear that, but you can never be too careful. Your evidence and plan are enough for me, Sally. I want the divorce. How soon can you file it and let her know? On Wednesday afternoon, Tom was in the den with his father while Julia and his mother were in the kitchen preparing dinner when the doorbell rang. Tom's mother answered the door and they heard her call out, Julia, there's someone here to see you. Tom felt uneasy, sensing that a confrontation was coming. He turned to his father and said, Dad, I'm worried things are about to get intense. I'm sorry for bringing you into this, but I needed to make sure Julia faced this situation. Julia hurried into the room, clearly upset and holding an envelope along with some documents. She interrupted Tom and said, Tom Jennings, what is going on? I just got divorce papers. How could you say something so terrible? You know I care about you. Tom's parents watched in surprise as Julia continued to show her anger. He stepped closer, taking an envelope from under the couch. Julia, please listen, he said seriously. You know what's true. There have been many betrayals over the years, and I have seen evidence. Do you want to see those photos? Julia's face turned bright red. How can you say I've been unfaithful? You've been away for weeks at a time, and I'm supposed to believe you didn't do anything wrong? You treat my choices as betrayals when they were just part of my job. You can't ignore how your work affected our marriage, Tom responded. How many times did I come home and find you too tired to talk after those events you worked on? I was just doing my job, she argued strongly. It was work, nothing more. Did you really think I made a lot of money just from simple catering? It was all legitimate business. Tom shook his head, feeling frustrated. I've never dishonored our marriage like that. You should know that. As they continued to discuss their feelings and challenges, Tom added, I've tried to be fair in our settlement. I've suggested splitting our joint accounts, letting you keep the business income, and I would keep the income from my own business. Julia looked surprised, then shocked when he mentioned their daughter. You've changed Carrie into someone who might not have the life we wanted for her, haven't you? I can't believe this. Julia's expression softened as she replied quietly, "No, that was never my intention. I thought it was safer for her to be with me rather than facing the outside world. I never wanted to put her in that situation." Tom's frustration grew. "I feel like I can't trust anyone anymore," Tom said. "Listen, I know Carrie has changed since college. I'm just worried about her. She seems to follow in my footsteps, and I care about her," Julia shared, her voice shaking with emotion. Tom looked at his parents, who were surprised by the conversation. "I've had enough. I need some time away from all of this. I hope things will be better when I get back." As time went by, the divorce process continued, and it finally ended with Tom getting the outcome he wanted. But he felt a gap between him and his parents and old friends, which left him feeling uneasy. He tried to settle in his hometown and spent the months of the divorce and the next 3 months in a rented place. One Saturday, about 3 months after his divorce was final, Tom went golfing with Stan and 2 other friends. During their chat, they mentioned that Crystal's Catering had opened in town, and that his ex-wife, daughter, and some friends from California were behind the business. Later that evening, he decided he needed to move on. Stan said Crystal already had several local companies hiring her for meetings, including his own. He also mentioned that people in LA were thrilled to hear they could enjoy Crystal's food again and had booked management meetings for the next year with her. The following Monday morning, Tom went to the local Ford dealer and bought a new truck. He chose an F-250 Super Crew with all the extras. Then he drove his new truck to the local RV dealer and picked up a comfortable 36-foot fifth-wheel trailer. He planned to explore the U.S. and maybe Canada in style. Before he left, Tom thought about his next steps. He still felt some anger toward Julia and what had happened during their marriage. Finally, he decided he wanted to express his feelings. On the day he was set to leave, he sent an anonymous package to the local district attorney. It included a report about Crystal's Catering and mentioned worries regarding how they were running things in the area. Tom left his hometown in late spring, planning to explore the Northeast before heading south for the winter. He traveled northwest and made his first stop in Minden, Nebraska. There he spent 2 days enjoying Pioneer Village, which was full of old vehicles and machines. He barely had time to see everything. Finally, he set off again, heading east on I-29/US 71 and then north and east on I-90. Tom wasn't in a rush. He stopped whenever he wanted, sometimes driving for just an hour or 2, while on other days he drove for 6 or 8 hours. Tom loved to fish and enjoy time on streams. He also liked trying new foods and visiting interesting places. He took every chance to do these things while traveling. As he moved further east, he made sure to visit the John Deere Museum and the Ford Museum, spending days exploring both locations. In the evenings, he relaxed at campsite gatherings, meeting fellow travelers, many of whom had visited the same spots. As summer went on, Tom began to see familiar faces among his camping friends. Many of them became good acquaintances, sharing their stories and favorite places to visit. Tom exchanged phone numbers with some lovely people, and to his surprise, they kept in touch. He was starting to feel a sense of belonging and was finding comfort after his difficult divorce. Eventually, as the leaves changed colors, Tom found himself in New England, especially in Maine. He enjoyed the beautiful scenery and rich history, but found the roads tricky while pulling his trailer. Sometimes he chose to park and take short trips by staying in hotels to avoid the narrow roads and busy traffic. One day, while staying at a cozy coastal resort, Tom felt like he was moving past the hurt of his divorce and starting to enjoy life again, even though he still missed the idea of his old marriage. He was enjoying some tasty seafood and watching the sunset when a loud group of young people walked in. It was clear they had been drinking. Their noisy behavior made Tom uncomfortable, especially when one young man spoke rudely to the waitress and treated the young woman next to him poorly. Tom wanted to step in but tried to focus on his dessert as the loud complaints grew. The young man said, "I don't care if you're ready or not. I'm leaving. The service is terrible." As the group got ready to leave, the young woman seemed upset and worried. The man walked over to her, trying to pull her away from the table. She looked up and said firmly, "No, I'm not going anywhere with you. I regret agreeing to come out with you. I don't want to spend any more time with you. Please leave me alone." "Fine. Then find your own way home," he replied, clearly frustrated. Seeing her unhappy, Tom stood up and walked over to the young woman, who was clearly bothered. He knelt beside her and said, "I'm sorry. I don't understand why some men can be so difficult. Is there anything I can do for you?" The woman looked at him for a moment, then smiled and shook her head. "I'm fine. I'll just call a cab to take me home. What a way to end a first date." Tom watched as the young woman stood up, picked up her purse and wrap, and walked toward the door. Just as she was opening it, the waitress hurried over and handed her a piece of paper. The woman paused, looked at it, and her face changed to worry. Tom came closer and asked, "What's going on here?" The waitress replied, "This lady was about to leave without paying for her meal. I was lucky to catch her." "But I didn't order all of this," Abigail said. "I mean, I was on a date, and he left me here after we disagreed. I don't have the money to pay for this. I left my credit cards at home and only have a few dollars in cash." At that moment, the manager came over and asked what was wrong. After hearing the story, he insisted that Abigail pay for her meal. She started crying again and said, "I don't have the money. I'll have to call my parents to see if they can come and help. I'm really sorry." Tom placed his hand on the manager's arm and led him away from Abigail and the waitress. "Listen," he said. "I was sitting near her and I heard everything. You probably saw the chaos too. Her friends were very rude and noisy. They bothered your waitress and made mean comments about the food. They were pushing Abigail to leave with them quickly. I think they planned to leave without paying from the start. Abigail didn't want to go with them, and now she's stuck with the bill. I suggest that you take her information and try to get the money from those people. I will gladly pay for her meal when I settle my bill if that works for you." The manager thought about what Tom said for a moment and then sighed. "I guess I can do that. But I need her name and address. If I can't get the money from the others, I will have to ask her or call for help." The manager and Tom went back to Abigail to share the decision. She began to cry again, realizing that Tom had helped her. Once everything was arranged, Tom offered to drive her home. She accepted through her tears, and they left the restaurant together. She shared that she had just moved back to town after finishing her studies and was living with her parents until she found her own place. After he entered her parents' address into his GPS, Tom thought she looked younger than she was since she had just graduated. As they drove, Tom and Abigail chatted, and he found himself more and more interested in her. When they arrived at her home, Tom was impressed by the large, beautiful property that was set back from the road. Abigail invited him inside to meet her parents, but when they went in, they found a note saying her parents would be home later that evening. Abigail offered Tom some coffee, and they started chatting and soon found themselves laughing together. Tom learned that Abigail was 34 years old, had graduated from college the year before, and was working in her father's business. She had married right after high school, but divorced after 7 years because of a difficult situation. After the divorce, she had chosen not to rely on her parents, finding a job as a secretary while saving money to go to college. Abigail had known the people she was out with for a long time, but she only considered one of them a true friend, and now she was unsure about that friendship. The man she was with was wealthy and often acted as if he was better than others. She agreed to go out with him because her friend urged her to, and because his father did business with her father. As the evening continued, Abigail noticed that Tom hadn't finished his dessert. She offered to find him something sweet and poured him a generous glass of nice port. After a few glasses, Tom realized he had drunk more than he should have and felt too tipsy to drive. Abigail insisted he stay the night and led him upstairs to a guest bedroom. She had also had enough to drink. Just as she was about to leave the room, she stopped and turned back to him. "Tom, you are such a kind person. I really appreciate everything you've done tonight. You've changed what could have been a boring evening into one that I really enjoyed." Tom smiled, feeling a special connection between them as they stood there. They continued talking for a little while longer, sharing stories and laughter. Even with everything happening, both people felt a sense of friendship that night. "I need to talk to his father about this situation. I might stop doing business with him anyway. I've never liked that man, and this just makes it worse," Howard said. He then turned to Tom and added, "As for you, I cannot say I like what you did with my daughter. You knew she was feeling down and had too much to drink. Abby quickly replied, "Daddy, it was my fault. I was about to leave when I turned back. I started everything and he didn't treat me badly. We had talked a lot before, and he's been through some tough times." She then shared a short version of Tom's marriage and divorce story. When she finished, her father looked surprised, and her mother had tears in her eyes. Shirley looked at Tom and said, "You poor man. I can't imagine how you must feel." Finally, Howard stood up and said, "Well, it's getting late, and we should all get to bed. We can talk more in the morning." He glanced at Tom and Abby, then smiled a little before adding, "I trust you two will stay in the right rooms?" Abby felt shy and turned to Tom. She took his hand and led him to the stairs. At his bedroom door, she stood on her tiptoes and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, whispering, "I'm sorry my dad was hard on you, but that's all I'm sorry for. Good night." The next morning on Saturday, they all gathered in the kitchen for breakfast. When Tom tried to turn down the food, Howard insisted he stay. Later, when Tom tried to leave, Howard asked him to stay again. As the day went on, they grew closer, if not exactly friends, at least good company. For the next week, Tom stayed and let the couple and Abby show him around. Eventually, he felt it was time to move on and gently told Abby one night that he had to go. She smiled and gave him a gentle kiss as she said, "I understand. I wish you could stay, but I get it." Tom started his journey down the East Coast again. He stopped often to visit historical sites and museums. To his surprise, Abby called him regularly, along with her mother and sometimes her father. Tom found himself looking forward to Abby's calls more and more. They would sometimes talk for hours while he drove. His truck had a hands-free system, so he could talk safely while driving. They shared stories about what he was seeing and doing, as well as more personal updates. He felt like he knew almost as much about Abby as he did about his first wife. Tom spent several weeks in New Hampshire and around Boston before heading further south. He enjoyed a week in the Shenandoah Valley, where he visited the homes of many past presidents and some lovely wineries. However, he felt let down by colonial Williamsburg after spending a day there and visiting Jamestown before moving on. His next stop was North Carolina, where he spent 3 weeks at different campgrounds, enjoying the Smoky Mountains. He visited the Biltmore Estate, several old grist mills, and admired the stunning scenery. In one small town, he discovered a pioneer village, a resort with beautiful streams. He spent a peaceful week there and met wonderful people. He thought about staying there for the winter, but was encouraged by fellow campers to keep going. After the Smoky Mountains, Tom stopped in Charleston, South Carolina. Although he was only there for a few days, he enjoyed exploring the historic downtown, Fort Sumter, and other sites. The food was excellent, and he found a nice restaurant called Poogan's Porch that served some of the best meals he had experienced so far. There were many great restaurants in the area, too. Tom didn't cook for himself at all while he was in Charleston, and he planned to come back soon to keep trying the nice places to eat. After Charleston, Tom went to Hilton Head Island. He thought it was a lovely place and stayed there for 2 weeks. He played golf, explored historic sites, went deep-sea fishing, and enjoyed relaxing by the pool. Then he traveled to Savannah, Georgia, and spent 5 days there, appreciating the history of the city. By this time, the weather was getting cooler, so he decided to head further south to Florida. Tom stopped in St. Augustine at World Golf Village, where he played golf for 2 days. He also visited some local historic sites before heading to Orlando to see Disney, Busch Gardens, and SeaWorld. He felt that the amusement parks were not as fun alone, and thought he would return if he found someone to enjoy them with. By the time Christmas was getting close, Tom was in the Florida Keys. He decided to spend the winter there, staying in a nice trailer park on Key West. He enjoyed being with fellow snowbirds. On the morning of December 20th, he got a phone call from Abby. When she learned that Tom was going to stay in the Keys for the holiday, she invited him to her home for Christmas with her family. Tom felt unsure, and Abby urged him, "Oh, Tom, please, come be with us." Then Tom heard Shirley on the line. "Tom, I heard you aren't coming to see us for Christmas. Abby told us you won't be with family, and we want you here. Are you going to change your mind, or do I have to get Howard to persuade you?" Tom laughed and replied, Okay, you win. I'll leave later this morning. He thought, if I drive steadily, I can arrive before Christmas. I'll leave the trailer here and just take the truck. Late on Christmas Eve, Tom pulled into Abby's driveway. When Tom got to the porch, the front door opened and Abby rushed out of the house. She greeted him with a big, happy hug, showing how excited she was to see him. Her mom and dad came out too, smiling. Shirley said, "Abby, calm down, dear. You're being so loud. Neighbors might think you're too excited." Tom laughed, feeling the warmth of the family around him. He let Abby go, but kept an arm around her as they walked back inside. Once inside, everyone welcomed him like a member of the family. Howard and Shirley settled into their usual chairs while Abby showed Tom to the couch. She cuddled up close to him, clearly happy to have him there. She frequently smiled at him, her joy shining through. The evening flew by with friendly chats about the week since Tom last visited. Nobody noticed how late it was until Shirley looked at the clock and said, "Wow, it's already 12:30. You must be tired from your drive, Tom. Let's all get some sleep and continue tomorrow." Everyone agreed it was time for bed. As they headed upstairs, Shirley said, "Tom, you're in the same room as before. The guest bathroom has everything you need, but just let us know if you need anything else." Tom smiled and nodded. Abby's parents went into their room, closing the door quietly behind them. Abby stayed for a moment longer and gave Tom a gentle hug goodnight. "Sleep well, Tom," she said with a shy smile before going to her room. Tom watched her leave, feeling grateful for the warmth and kindness of her family. In his room, Tom decided to clean up after the long drive. He took a quick shower, shaved, and brushed his teeth before getting into bed. The room was calm, and soon Tom drifted off into a deep, restful sleep. The next morning, sunlight filled the room, waking Tom with its gentle shine. He stretched and smiled, feeling the happiness of Christmas morning. A moment later, Abby knocked softly before coming in with a tray of coffee and pastries. "Merry Christmas," she said, her eyes shining. She set the tray on the nightstand and sat on the edge of the bed. They spent a quiet, joyful morning talking about their plans for the day, the smell of fresh coffee filling the room. Abby's excitement was infectious as she shared the fun activities her family had planned. She smiled at him, a playful look in her eyes. When they hugged, she let out a small gasp and moved closer, enjoying the cozy moment. Abby expressed her happiness with soft sounds, her face glowing with joy. She savored their connection, feeling a rush of emotions. That special moment made her heart race, and she felt a deep affection for him. Abby relaxed against Tom, showing him her gentle feelings. "Oh, Tom," she said, "I've missed you so much. I've never felt this way about anyone else." Her eyes sparkled as she continued, "Tom, I love you so much. I was sad when you couldn't come for Christmas." They both jumped at a knock on the door. Abby realized she hadn't closed it tightly, and it swung open. As the door opened, Shirley called out, "Tom, it's almost 9 a.m. I have coffee and a light breakfast ready if you'd like. I'll go wake Abby too." "Oh no, not again. Abby." Startled, Abby stood up from Tom's side, her cheeks turning a light shade of red from the surprise. Tom couldn't help but laugh, which made Abby even more embarrassed. "It's not funny," she said, hurrying to the door. Shirley watched as Abby dashed into her room, slamming the door behind her. Tom chuckled softly as he looked at Shirley. He tried to explain himself, but she simply smiled, shook her head, and left the room, closing the door gently behind her. Tom quickly got dressed and picked up Abby's robe from the floor to return it to her. As he neared her bedroom, he could hear Abby and her mother talking. He hesitated at the door when he heard Abby say, "I don't care, Mother. I'm nearly 35, and Tom is the only person I've met since my divorce who makes me feel something special. I want to be with him." Abby took a moment before expressing how much she cared for Tom and the importance he held in her life. Shirley looked up and noticed Tom standing at the door. He gave a small wave before hanging the robe on the doorknob and heading downstairs. Tom was surprised by what he had overheard. He reflected on his feelings for Abby and the moments they shared. He appreciated the warmth of her family and looked forward to their conversations, wondering if their friendship could grow deeper. In the kitchen, He poured himself a cup of coffee and took it to the family room where Howard was reading. Howard noticed Tom looked thoughtful. "What's on your mind this morning, Tom?" he asked. "Well, Howard, I'm trying to make sense of what Abby said last night and this morning," Tom replied, feeling a bit uneasy. "I'm worried I might be overstaying my welcome, and I think I should leave before causing any more issues." Howard listened carefully as Tom spoke, leaning back in his chair. "Tom, I don't think being with Abby is the best thing for her right now. You both know what you want, but I don't want her to get hurt again. Her past has affected her, and I'm not sure she's ready for more pain. Just be gentle with her feelings. Shirley and I have come to like you, and if you bring our daughter happiness, then I can accept you being together. Tom, I know you are a good man. I need to say sorry before I go on, but as a businessman, I'm sure you will understand my actions. After you left, I hired a private investigator to look into you. Some parts of your story were hard to believe. I truly regret invading your privacy like that, and I promise no one will hear what I found out from me. I've destroyed the report, so anything you want people to know about your past is up to you to share. I just wanted to make sure you weren't someone who could harm my daughter." Howard stood up and offered his hand for a shake. "I'm really sorry, and hope you can forgive me." Tom felt angry when Howard mentioned the investigation. He was about to reply when a thought crossed his mind. Meeting Abby the way he did was strange, and it was clear her family was wealthy. Wouldn't he worry if something similar happened with his own daughter? He looked tense, but he smiled and stood to shake Howard's hand. "I think I get it, Howard. I can't say I'm happy with what you did, but I understand. I'm sure you see that I'm a bit upset. I will trust you to keep your promise, and if you want, I can leave." Howard gave a faint smile and went back to his seat. "I think you are good for Abby, and I hope you don't let my actions harm your relationship with her. All I ask is that if you decide she is not the right person for you, you don't hurt her. By the way, I found out that Crystal's Catering reopened in your hometown and then got shut down by the prosecuting attorney. Several people faced charges for different wrongdoings. It seems he got an anonymous tip right after your travels started. I must say, Tom, it looks like crossing you might not be smart." Tom looked at Howard and said, "Thanks for everything. I really like Abby, but I'm unsure about the future. After my marriage ended, I'm having a hard time thinking about being with another woman. I still sometimes feel upset about my past." Howard leaned back in his chair, narrowing his eyes as he looked at Tom. He was about to speak when Tom raised his hand to pause him. "Howard, I know many women are not like that. I can think of several who are good and would be loyal in a marriage. I'm someone who believes in being with just one person, and I want someone who feels the same. My heart tells me Abigail might be one of those, but I still have some worry." The two men went quiet as they heard the women coming from the kitchen. Without saying a word, they stopped talking. When Shirley and Abby walked in, they could feel the tension in the air. Abby approached Tom, looking down at him with a small smile before sitting on his lap and resting her head against his shoulder. Abby looked up at Tom and whispered, "Tom, I know you heard some of my talk with my mother, and I caught part of what you said to Dad. I'm not sure where this is going, but I'd really like to see if we are on the same path. I won't push you. I'll take what you can give me, but can we at least explore this together?" Tom smiled back at Abby, appreciating how she was expressing herself. "Abby, I'm not sure where I will go from here. I know I want to find a partner, someone to share my life with, but I'm not sure if I'm ready for more right now." Abby grinned, leaning in to give Tom a gentle kiss. "I'll take what I can get, but I'm not giving up on you yet." Tom noticed Shirley standing beside Howard, both of them looking happy. Shirley smiled and said, "All right, it's Christmas. Let's see what presents are under the tree before Abby and I start dinner." As Shirley and Abby walked to the tree to gather presents, Tom stood up. They looked at him and Abby said, "No, Tom, don't go." Tom smiled, reassuring them. "I'm not going anywhere. I just need to use the restroom and bring in a few last things from the truck. I'll be right back." When Tom came back to the family room, there were 3 big piles of gifts waiting. Abby sat close to him, excited to start opening them. The family took turns unwrapping their gifts. Abby wanted him to open the second-to-last present, which was a beautiful picture of her in a lovely deep red dress. It was framed with the words, To my hero with all my love and admiration, Abby. Tom felt a little emotional as he read the message and looked at Abby. He smiled and said, "Thank you, sweetheart." His heart warmed when he saw the happy look on Abby's face. Once all the gifts were opened, Tom grabbed his bag and took out 3 more presents. He stood up and gave one to Abby, then one to Howard and Shirley. Before he could sit down again, Abby had quickly opened hers and squealed with joy when she saw the gold necklace he had chosen for her. She immediately put it on and hugged him tightly. He felt a rush of love and gently said, "Whoa, let's keep it easy." Abby looked at him with a cheeky smile and took a playful glance, then sat back to watch her parents open their gifts. Her father got a nice gold pen and pencil set, while her mother received a charming little music box for her collection that Tom had noticed during his first visit. After another cup of coffee, Abby and Shirley went back to the kitchen to prepare the Christmas meal. Around noon, guests started to arrive, and Tom met Abby's 2 brothers, their wives, and children. The day was all about family, sharing the meal, and getting to know Abby's relatives. Tom felt a bit shy when Abby brought up where everyone would sleep. She said, "Tom, you can stay in my room, and we have enough bedrooms for everyone since the kids usually sleep in the living room." Tom looked around at the rest of the family, feeling a little surprised. Abby's brothers' wives looked surprised, but then Shirley started to laugh, and soon Howard joined in. They had to explain to everyone else why it was funny. Janine, Abby's oldest brother's wife, said, "Wow, you got caught in his room twice? If you didn't have bad luck, I'd think you wouldn't have luck at all." Abby walked over to Tom and stood behind him, wrapping her arms around him and kissing him on the ear. She said, "Well, I feel lucky to have found him. I changed the sheets in his room so it's ready for whoever needs it. I'm tired, and we're going to get some rest now. Please don't disturb us in the morning, okay?" Tom and Abby left the room to the sound of laughter. She took his hand and led him to the stairs, looking back with a smile. Tom stayed in Maine until after New Year's before deciding to return to Florida. He left early on January 3rd. Abby and her parents walked with him to his truck to wish him a safe trip. Howard shook Tom's hand and said, "Tom, come back any time and remember our talk." Shirley gave Tom a gentle kiss on the cheek and said, "Stay in touch, Tom, and keep us in your thoughts." Luckily, her parents went back into the warm house. Abby hugged Tom tightly, tears in her eyes. After a moment, he gently pushed her back, tilting her head up. He looked into her eyes for a while before leaning down to kiss her. After a long moment, he pulled away and said, "Abby, I've really enjoyed my time with you and your family. I need to go back to my trailer for a bit, but I want you to know it's hard for me to leave. I think I'm falling for you." Tom leaned in for another kiss, then opened the door to his truck, starting it and backing out of the driveway. Abby stood watching him as he drove away, tears running down her cheeks. When Tom turned the corner 2 blocks away, he could still see her standing there. Tom stayed in Florida until the end of March, moving between 3 different trailer parks. Following the warmer weather north, he returned to Georgia in early April. He spent the rest of the spring hopping from one campsite to another, enjoying fishing and relaxing. By mid-May, he found a lovely campground along the Little Pigeon River in eastern Tennessee. He parked there for a few days, exploring the area and visiting the Smoky Mountains. Although he liked the scenery, he felt something was missing. One beautiful morning, Tom hooked up his trailer and headed east and a bit south. With no specific place in mind, he realized he wasn't enjoying the Smoky Mountains anymore, so he decided to travel again. After several days, he drove along a beautiful river in northern Georgia and spotted a friendly-looking campground. He pulled in, and since they had space available, he chose to stay. The campground had a nice lodge and restaurant, a great swimming pool, and a calm little river for children, along with 30 campsites. Tom was lucky to get a nice spot close to the lodge and beside the river, which allowed him to fish, swim, hike, canoe, or simply take it easy. He began to feel more relaxed. Even though there were many younger campers, they were mostly polite and respectful. There were also some older RVers whom Tom enjoyed chatting with. Still, he felt a sense of longing. One evening, while talking with some older couples, it struck him he missed Abigail and wished she could be with him. He realized that he had often thought about things he wanted to share with her. He made mental notes for their nearly daily phone calls, but it didn't fully satisfy his wish for her company. He wanted her there with him, to see her all the time, to hold her hand and look into her eyes while they talked. He wanted to be with her. The next morning, Tom called Abby and asked if he could come to see her and her family again. Almost before he finished, he heard her excitedly reply, "Yes. Oh, yes, Tom. When can you come? Can you come now? Oh, hurry. I can't wait to see you." After their chat, Tom headed to the office and checked out of the camp. He told them how much he enjoyed his stay and mentioned that he would stop by again if he was ever in the area. "I have to go now, though. I have someone waiting for me in Maine, and I want to get back to her as soon as I can." On his journey across the country, Tom didn't waste any time. He drove 8 to 9 hours a day and took the fastest route, skipping any sightseeing. 6 days after talking to Abby, he parked his truck and trailer in front of her house. Once again, she rushed out to greet him. This time, her parents were standing on the porch, happily watching the reunion. After Abby settled down, Tom went onto the porch to greet her parents. That evening, after dinner, they all talked in the family room while Tom shared stories about his time in Tennessee, North Carolina, and Georgia, and the beautiful campsites he had visited. He spoke about the long drive back to Maine and how eager he was to see Abby. He turned to her, drawing her close. They found comfort together on the couch, her familiar presence making him feel at home. Tom looked at Howard and Shirley and then at Abby. He addressed Howard, saying, "At Christmas, we talked about Abby, and I made you a promise. I promised not to hurt her if I could help it. I told you I didn't know what I wanted, but I wasn't ready for any commitments. Last week, while sitting at the camp in Georgia, I realized I felt empty and alone. It hit me that I wanted to open my heart to someone again. I knew what I wanted. Howard, I want your daughter. I want to talk to her in person and hold her close. I want to care for and love her. Howard, Shirley, I want to marry your daughter." Tom saw Abby's reaction as he talked to her parents. Her eyes sparkled with feelings as he turned to her, reaching into his pocket. Taking her hand, he looked into her eyes and said, "Abigail Thomas, you have filled my heart with joy. Over the past year, I have faced my past, and I have truly fallen in love with you. Will you marry me?" Abby was so happy that she could barely speak at first. She nodded and held out her hand for him to place the ring on her finger. After looking at the ring, her face lit up with happiness, and she turned to show her parents. "I have to call everyone!" she shouted, hurrying out of the room to get her phone. She quickly made calls, her voice full of excitement. After a little while, she returned to sit next to Tom again, cuddling close as her phone buzzed with joyful messages from friends and family. As the night went on, they all agreed it was late and time to sleep. Abby led Tom to her room, turning to her parents with a quick, "Good night, don't wait up for us." The following morning, after expressing her love for Tom once again, Abby and her mother began planning the wedding. They decided to have the ceremony at her parents' home, making things simpler. With everything falling into place in less than 4 weeks, the date was set, and the two women jumped into a flurry of planning. Tom and Howard did their best to stay out of the way while the excitement grew. One afternoon, as they relaxed outside, they heard raised voices coming from the front of the house. Worried, they quickly exchanged concerned looks and headed inside. As they approached the door, Shirley rushed toward them, looking worried and anxious. "Help! Dorian came to the door, and when I opened it, he pushed his way in." He found Abby and was trying to take her to his car. He claimed she was still his wife and was upset about what he felt were their broken promises to each other. Tom rushed past Shirley and Howard. As he entered the house, he shouted, "Call the police if you haven't. I will try to stop him." Once in the living room, Tom heard a loud noise and saw a table and a broken lamp on the floor. A big man was leaving with Abby over his shoulder, and she looked scared and was trying to break free. Tom hurried outside, bursting through the front door. He was about 10 feet behind the man when he saw the kidnapper struggling to open the car door because Abby was fighting back. Just as Tom got closer, the man tried to shove Abby into the car. Tom grabbed the man's arm firmly, pulling him away from her. As Abby fell to the ground, the kidnapper turned and swung a punch at Tom. Tom dodged but still felt the hit, making his vision blur. He knew he had to protect himself. Drawing on some basic martial arts training, Tom felt slow but had to act quickly. Luckily, the man tripped on a branch, giving Tom the chance to kick him back. The man bent over in pain and fell down. Tom didn't know what to do next when he felt Abby hug him tightly, clearly shaken. The kidnapper, recovering, shouted angrily, "You can't do this! We are still married according to the law!" Tom stepped in front of Abby, moving toward the man again. This time, he took the chance to kick him again, knocking him out completely. When the police arrived, the officers quickly looked over the scene. After Tom and Abby explained what happened, the officer arrested the man and called for backup. Later, as things settled down, Howard went to the bar and poured drinks for everyone. He walked up to Tom with thankful eyes and said, "You helped Abby during a big problem. I really don't know how to repay you. If it had been just me, things could have gone badly. Please, if you need anything, just let me know." Abby, sitting on Tom's lap, looked up at him warmly, her head resting against him. As Howard spoke, she leaned in and gave Tom a light kiss on the cheek, making the room feel brighter. Tom smiled back at Abby's dad and joked, "Thanks for the offer, Howard. I'd like to take your daughter out one day." The room fell quiet for a moment before everyone laughed. Abby playfully nudged him and said, "You silly, you already have me." Weeks went by before Tom and Abby could leave. 10 days later, they were married in her parents' backyard. Tom invited only a few close friends and didn't expect to see some people. He was surprised to see his daughter sitting nearby with her young child. Turning to Abby, he asked quietly but firmly, "Did you invite my daughter to this wedding?" When Abby nodded, he showed his frustration. "I thought I made it clear that I don't want to see her or her mother again. Why did you think this was okay?" Abby looked upset, tears rolling down her cheeks as they kept walking. Tom guided her past the reception area into the bedroom they had been using. He closed the door and continued speaking to Abby. "I might have been able to handle my daughter making choices I don't like. Many people do that. We did too. If no one gets hurt, relationships between adults are fine by me. But the way she is acting is too much for me to accept. For her to help my wife in that way and to trick her husband too is more than I can bear. I don't usually spend time with people outside of family, so why would I want to be around her?" Just then there was a knock on the door, and it opened by itself. Shirley walked in and closed the door behind her. She noticed Tom's frown and Abby's sad expression. Before either of them could speak, she said, "If you're talking about what I think you are, Tom, I need to share my thoughts before things go too far. I encouraged Abby to invite your daughter. Since we didn't have her address, we added the invite to your son's. Tom, I see that you're upset with her and don't agree with her choices. But think about how hard it would be in the future if you cut her out of your life and missed seeing your lovely granddaughter. I can't imagine living without my grandkids, and I don't want that for you either. If you need to be angry, please direct that at me instead." Tom stared at the two women for a moment, then sighed. He wouldn't say it out loud, but he did want to be part of his granddaughter's life. "All right," he said, "but don't expect me to welcome her with open arms. I'll be polite, but it's for you and the child more than for anything else." Shirley smiled and linked her arm with his. "Well, now that's settled. Let's go. We have a party to enjoy and you have guests to meet." Tom and Abigail had been at the reception for over an hour when they saw Carrie, Harold, and his granddaughter. He gave his son a warm hug and bent down to pick up Linda, his granddaughter. She hugged him tightly. Though being just 2 years old, she didn't really know who he was. While Tom chatted with Harold and Linda, Carrie was watching him closely. When he turned to hand Linda to her, she said sharply, "What is it, Father?" "Isn't there a greeting for me?" Tom glanced at her and replied, "Hello, Carrie. Linda is really growing up." Carrie responded, "I came here to say that I think you've really messed things up. Wasn't it enough to take Mother's part of the business? Why did you have to cause so much trouble? Because of you, everything has fallen apart. We weren't after you. We were just trying to earn a living. Now we can't show our faces in town or in LA. We're looking for a new start so we can make a living. I hope you regret what you've done." Carrie then looked at Abigail, sneering as she said, "And you? I really don't understand why you thought I would want to be around someone who was once my father. If he had cared about me, things would be different. I hope you'll see just how much pain he causes to those close to him." Turning to Harold, Carrie said, "Come on, Harold, let's go." Shirley, Abby, and a few guests who had heard the conversation stood still, surprised as Carrie took Linda from Tom and quickly headed to the front of the house. Harold looked stunned. He turned to Tom and Abby, trying to say something but couldn't get the words out. Finally, he managed, "Dad, I'm sorry. I had no idea if I had known she was going to act like that, I wouldn't have invited her. I thought you could settle things and we could be a family again. I knew she and Mom were really upset when they thought you turned them in. They didn't speak kindly of you when you filed for divorce. But when they got arrested, they were really angry." Harold was still speaking when Carrie came back around the house, calling out, "Harold, come on! Let's go." Harold looked at Tom and then added, "I should take her back to the hotel. Our flight home is in the morning at 10. Dad, if it's all right, I would really like to come back after I drop her off and talk. Could I please?" Tom looked at Harold and gave him a small smile. "Yes, son," he said. "I'd like to see you. Come back when you can." After Harold and Carrie left, Tom walked to the bar and poured himself a drink. He slowly made his way to a quiet chair and sat beside Abby, who was staring off into space. Abby was quietly crying as she leaned against him. She turned to him and kissed him softly, whispering, "Oh, Tom, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I should have listened to you, but I let Mom talk me into this. It's my fault things went wrong." Tom sat up straight, looking her in the eyes. There were deep feelings in his gaze as he said seriously, "I thought you knew me better than that. I would never hurt you. If you think I'm that kind of person, why did you marry me? Maybe we need to think about our future." Abby gasped and hugged him tightly. She held on to him, showing her worry with a loud cry that caught the attention of those nearby. Her parents and siblings hurried over. Howard asked, "What happened here? I know Carrie said some hurtful things, but why are both of you so upset?" Abby looked up at her family, her voice shaking. "Tom said he wants to end our marriage tomorrow. I don't want to lose him, and it's all my fault, Daddy. Please help me convince him not to do this." Howard turned to Tom, worry showing on his face. "Tom, why would you want to end things so soon? I thought you loved Abby. Mistakes happen, but this doesn't seem too serious to fix." Tom sighed deeply. "Howard, it's more than just a mistake. Abby's reaction makes me feel like she doesn't trust me or understand me at all. I don't know if I can be with someone who doubts me so easily." Abby began to cry again. "No, Tom, I didn't mean it that way. I know I made a mistake. I'll do whatever I can to make it right. Please don't give up on us." Howard gently pulled Abby aside and turned to Shirley. "Take her inside, Shirley. I need to speak with Tom for a moment." Shirley nodded and led Abby back into the house while trying to comfort her. Howard then addressed his sons. "Go get us some coffee and give us a few minutes." After the coffee arrived, Howard looked at Tom with seriousness. "Tom, I understand why you're upset, but don't you think you might be overreacting a little? We all say things we don't mean when emotions run high. Abby really cares about you, and I know you feel the same way. This is your chance to show her how strong your connection is, even when things get tough." Tom sat quietly for a moment and then nodded. "Yeah, you're right. I overreacted. She just touched a sensitive spot and I didn't handle it well. I'll go talk to her." Howard smiled and gave Tom a supportive pat on the shoulder. "Good man. Go to her and let her know how much she matters to you." Tom walked into the house and made his way to their room. Abby was sitting on the bed, looking upset, while her mother sat nearby trying to comfort her. When Tom entered, Shirley stood and left the room, giving them some privacy. Abby looked up at Tom, tears in her eyes. "Tom, I'm so sorry for hurting you. I wasn't thinking clearly, and I let my feelings get the best of me. Please don't stop caring about me. I'll do anything to make this right." Tom sat beside her and held her hands. "Abby, I love you, and I know I reacted too strongly. I shouldn't have said what I did. Let's move past this and move forward together." Abby smiled through her tears and wrapped her arms around Tom in a warm hug. They sat quietly for a while, their tension easing as they found comfort in being close to each other. In no time, Abby stretched her back and let out a happy sound. She finally relaxed and pulled back a bit. She said, "Wait, please. Oh, it's too much. Just give me a moment." Tom sat next to Abby. He leaned in, and they shared gentle kisses while he held her. Abby made soft sounds of appreciation, moving slowly in response. As their bond grew stronger, Abby looked at Tom and whispered, "Please stay close to me now." Tom smiled, momentarily distracted by the sounds from outside. As they continued to share their feelings, there was a warm sense of love between them. As they became absorbed in each other, the laughter and chatter from the guests outside slowly quieted. Some of the guests looked toward the bedroom window, their faces showing a mix of surprise and amusement. While some felt a bit shy, others smiled at the clear love between Tom and Abby. Shirley felt unsure about how to react to what was happening above her. Eventually, the sounds of their closeness faded, and everything returned to normal. The crowd went back to their conversations, with a few still blushing, while laughter filled the room. Soon after, Tom and Abby came out dressed casually, with Abby in a light summer dress. As they walked to the bar, applause broke out from the guests. One of the men jokingly said, "Oh, it's great," which made everyone laugh and caused Tom to feel a bit shy. Abby spoke to the guests, saying, "Yes, he is great. He's my partner, and I'm proud of how much I care about him. I almost lost him with all the wedding plans, but I've learned to focus on what really matters." With a light laugh, she added, "We really didn't know we were being so loud." One of Abby's cousins playfully reassured her, "Oh, don't worry, you have nothing to apologize for. I'm glad you showed us your kindness." The group went back to chatting, laughing, and having fun. Soon after, Harold made a joke with Tom, adding to the cheerful mood. Tom and Harold caught up on what had happened over the past year. As the evening ended and guests left, family members got ready for bed. The next morning, they enjoyed coffee and joked about the surprising fun from the night before. Tom and Abby thought about their lovely wedding day. They felt thankful, but also recognized the challenges ahead. With things to handle, they decided to take a short trip to a nearby resort to relax together, craving a quiet break before facing the future. He pleaded not guilty and had to wait for a trial, so they couldn't move on from the situation just yet. After the court hearing, Tom and Abby planned to start their travels. They both agreed they needed to find a permanent home, but they would explore the country in Tom's truck and trailer until they found the right place to settle down. They needed to keep the lawyer informed about where they were, but at least they could start moving forward. Their journey followed Tom's path from the previous year. They had seen much of the country together, which made traveling faster until they reached the area south of D.C. Then Tom began heading more to the west-southwest, driving through the mountains of North Carolina. Once they approached Asheville, he left the highway and headed to a small campground he had enjoyed before. It was one of his favorites, and he really liked the people who managed it. Tom had called ahead and booked what he thought was the best site in the campground. When Abby saw the camp as they arrived, she was thrilled. "Oh, Tom, it's beautiful. The lodge looks so charming, and the stream running through adds a special touch." Tom took Abby inside when he checked in and introduced her to the owners. To his surprise, two couples he had seen before were in the lobby, so he introduced Abby to them. Over the next week, he and Abby explored the local sites before heading west a bit to Gatlinburg and Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, another favorite place of Tom's. They spent another week relaxing by the pool and visiting the attractions in those two small towns. Of course, they went to a few shows in Pigeon Forge, which is known for its entertainment. Abby seemed to really enjoy the performances. One morning, Tom and Abby sat on the balcony outside a small restaurant in the camp. The sun was just starting to rise over the mountains, shining through the leaves and the mist from the stream flowing happily beneath the deck. Only a few other tables were occupied, giving them some privacy. Tom looked at his new wife and felt grateful to have found her. He felt a stronger bond with her than he ever did with Julia. They seemed to understand each other very well and could sense each other's feelings. However, he noticed that something was bothering Abby. Even though she smiled often, there was a thoughtful look in her eyes, and she seemed a bit restless. He took a deep breath and decided to bring it up. Tom finished his coffee and poured the last of it into their travel mugs. Abby smiled at him as she finished her drink. She stood up, walked over to Tom, and said, "I need to go to the restroom, and then I'll be ready." Tom smiled and replied, "I need to go too. I'll see you back here." When Abby returned, Tom had put the mugs in his backpack and checked his shoes and socks. They were ready to go. He had lunch packed, coffee for their first stop, and other drinks for later. He felt a little nervous, but knew he needed to talk to Abby about what was on her mind once they reached their destination. They were headed to hike in Smoky Mountain National Park to see a waterfall. It would be a 4-mile hike, mostly going uphill. They were both excited about it, but felt a little nervous, too. People said it was a tough climb, but the views of the mountains and pretty meadows made it worthwhile. He packed extra memory cards for the camera and was ready to start. Abby returned to the deck and smiled when she saw Tom waiting for her. She walked up to him and asked, "Ready?" as she began heading toward the trailhead, pulling Tom along. The first 2 miles were a steady and easy walk. They often pointed out interesting sights, but didn't talk much beyond that. Sometimes they would stop to rest, usually at nice viewpoints. Finally, a little past the halfway mark, they reached a rest area with a picnic table. They took a break, enjoying some trail mix and finishing their morning coffee. Tom turned to Abby and smiled, feeling a strong bond between them. After their short break, they continued on their hike, appreciating the beauty around them and each other's company as they moved closer to their goal. He could feel the warmth and the promise of the moment. Without saying a word, they held hands and walked up the mountain path. Even though Tom was fit, he started to worry that they might not reach the waterfall. He had to admit he was more tired than he thought he would be. They had been hearing the sound of the rushing water for a while when they turned a corner around a large rock. They stopped, amazed. In front of them was the waterfall, flowing down from the mountain and dropping about 300 feet before the stream moved among the rocks at the base. It was stunning. The sun shone through the mist, making a small rainbow. Tom looked around and found a nice spot where they could sit and have lunch. From where they sat, they could see the waterfall and enjoy its beautiful sight. After they finished eating, Tom put his arm around Abby's shoulders, and she leaned against him, resting her head on his chest. They sat in silence for a few minutes, enjoying the peace of their surroundings. They were lucky to be in a quiet spot where they could hear voices from near the waterfall but couldn't see anyone. Tom glanced down at Abby. "Honey, is something bothering you? I've noticed you seem a bit lost in thought. Did I do something to upset you?" Abby straightened up and turned to face Tom. She looked serious and a bit sad. She put her fingers on Tom's lips, signaling him to be quiet for a moment. She glanced around as if unsure about what to say. Finally, she turned back to him and spoke softly. "Tom, I really love you more every day. I can't imagine life without you. I know traveling after your retirement has always been a dream of yours, but I've really enjoyed the past month, and the people we've met are wonderful. Still, I feel a bit overwhelmed by moving around so much. Not knowing where we will be or having a place to call home worries me. I love the adventure, but I also want a home where we can settle down and have friends we can visit anytime. Oh, Tom, I want a home." Tom felt surprised. He had sensed Abby was troubled but didn't realize it was about this. He didn't want to spend his whole life traveling, even though he liked it for a little while each year. He had been looking for a place to call their own but hadn't found it yet. Now he understood that Abby wanted the same thing. He reached out and hugged her tightly. "Abby, I'm sorry. I thought you were having a good time until I noticed your expression lately. You seemed sad and unsure. I've been searching for a place to settle since my divorce, and I want that too. I've found many beautiful places and met great people, but nothing feels quite right. I want a spot that is quiet, peaceful, and pretty, like some places I discovered in the nearby mountains. I picture a nice stream where I can fish or paddle. It should also be close enough to town for shopping and fun. I've seen places that are almost what I want, but none have truly felt like home yet. I prefer not to live too far north because of the cold, and while I enjoy being further south in the winter, I don't want to own property in areas that have really bad weather. Have you seen any places you'd like to live?" Abby shook her head. "What you describe sounds amazing, especially if we could have a lovely home with a warm feeling and a nice view. I'd love to live in a place like that, but how do we find it?" Tom looked at his watch. "Oh no, it's almost 2. We need to head back. Maybe something will come to us and we can start searching for our new home tomorrow." By the time they returned to the lodge, they were quite tired. They decided not to cook in their trailer and chose to freshen up before going to the restaurant for dinner. They always enjoyed the meals there, and it was a peaceful place to relax and talk. As they walked through the lobby, Abby stopped at the display of local attractions. She picked up a few brochures and took Tom's hand, guiding him toward the bar where they could hear nice music. It was Friday night, and there was live music to enjoy. Once inside, they found a small table for two by the window to watch the evening unfold. Abby placed her drink order with the waitress and focused on the brochures. Tom began looking at them too. After a few minutes, he heard a friendly voice say, "Hey there." Since he had to ask someone to dance instead of enjoying the evening with a nice partner, Tom reached out his hand to Abby, hoping she would join him. Abby looked up and said, "No thanks, I only dance with my husband." She went back to looking at a brochure she had picked up. "Just one dance," he urged confidently. "I promise you'll like it." Abby looked at him again. "No! I don't know you, and I want to stick to my own plans. I bet there are others here who want to dance, but I'm not interested." Tom noticed her tone changing, and he sensed a conflict might happen. He prepared to stand up when the bouncer approached. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. Abby replied, "Not right now, but if he keeps ignoring what I said, there might be. I told him no, and he won't stop bothering me. My husband was about to step in when you got here." The bouncer took the man by the arm. "Come on, Aaron. You need to leave her alone. If you can't respect her decision, you may have to go." Aaron glared at Abby and Tom as the bouncer led him away. A slow song started playing, and Tom smiled at Abby. "Care to dance with me?" he asked, offering his hand. She smiled back and took his hand, and they moved together onto the dance floor. After a couple of songs, Abby said, "I need to step away for a moment. I'll meet you back at the table." She smiled before heading toward the restrooms. Tom ordered another round of drinks as he waited. His worry grew when he suddenly heard a distressed voice. "Leave me alone." Recognizing Abby's voice, he quickly went toward the hallway leading to the restrooms. The bouncer was also heading that way. As Tom entered the hallway, he saw Abby backed against the wall by a man from earlier who was too close for comfort. He felt he had to do something right away. Tom stepped forward and gently bumped into the man to ease the tension. The situation got a little heated, but he quickly took action to calm things down. The bouncer also jumped in, and soon everything settled. Abby rushed into Tom's arms, feeling relieved as he held her close. They stayed together while the sheriff and medics arrived. The bouncer explained what had happened to the sheriff, and after everyone shared their stories, the bouncer noted that Tom's quick thinking had stopped things from getting worse. Aaron was led away after the incident. Even though the evening had turned chaotic, Tom and Abby returned to their table, gathered their things, and went back to their trailer. They washed away the day's worries and snuggled in bed, finding comfort in each other until they fell asleep. The next morning, they headed back to the lodge for breakfast. Abby had brought a pamphlet. "This is from a real estate office. Why don't we see what they offer? We both like this area, and if we can find something you like, it could be a nice place for us. It's good for both our families and close to Florida and Hilton Head, which you said you want to see more of." Tom smiled at Abby's excitement. "That sounds like a good idea." At the real estate office, a friendly agent took notes and asked about what they wanted in a home. As she looked through the listings, she said, "Your wish list having a view, a spacious rustic home, and a stream nearby does limit the options quite a bit. I have a few that check some boxes, but only one has everything you want. However, it is a bit expensive and part of a resort." Curious, Tom asked about the price. The agent looked concerned as she said, "I'm afraid it costs a little over $3 million. And with the current economy, the banks would want at least 30% up front." "Can I see the picture, please?" Tom asked. He looked at the photo and the details, then started to laugh. He turned the book to Abby, and she looked at it too. Abby began to smile and said, "What do you think, dear?" Tom looked at the agent, then back to Abby. "I'm interested if you are. It's a lovely place, seems to be in good condition, and it meets our needs." Tom turned to the agent and said, "That price is too high." The agent seemed discouraged and responded, "I was worried it would be. Honestly, we've been trying to sell this for 2 years. It is even listed nationwide by a business agency, but—" Tom interrupted her. I'm willing to offer $2, $5 million cash, no loans, and we can take over right away. I would want the current owners to stay on site to help us for 6 months while we learn about the business. We can change the time frame if needed. I'm open to paying the current owners a salary or a share of the profits during this time. If they want to stay on as permanent staff, we can talk about that too. Abby and I want to travel some during the year, so having a good management team would be helpful. Of course, this offer depends on having a clear title and can be canceled if the financial records are not okay after our accountant reviews them. Abby turned to Tom and asked, "Are you sure we can afford this? What about our bills and repairs?" The agent started to worry again and began her sales pitch once more. Tom said, "Abby, we need to discuss this later." He subtly signaled to the agent. Abby quickly understood and nodded in agreement. The agent insisted, "But you haven't even seen the house or the resort." "I need to take you." Tom chuckled. "We can come with you if you want, but I don't think it's needed. We didn't know the place was for sale. I didn't notice any signs, but we've been here for the last month, and I've camped here twice before. I think we know more about the lodge and the area than we would learn from a visit." The realtor looked surprised. Finally, she said, "I need to prepare the papers and get a signature. It will probably take me about an hour. Do you want to wait, or how about you prepare the papers and bring them to the lodge? We are in the trailer next to the lodge. We have a red Super Crew with Missouri plates. If we're not in the trailer, we'll be inside the lodge. We can sign the papers and talk about some details with Joe." "Okay, I'll finish up here and meet you out there." Abby was smiling as they walked out of the building and down the sidewalk to their truck, feeling lighter than she had in days. Tom also felt a weight lifting from his shoulders. He hadn't realized how tired he was from traveling. When they returned to the lodge, Abby turned to Tom and said, "Can we go straight to the lodge? Maybe we can talk to Joe and Sharon about the deal." They followed Abby's suggestion, stopping in their trailer just long enough to grab 2 bottles of their favorite wine and some glasses. They took them to the lodge and found a nice spot to sit where they could see the stream and the mountains in the background. Once settled with their wine and some cheese to snack on, Tom went to find Joe. He spotted him and asked if he and his wife, Sharon, could join them for a break. "Of course, Tom. It's about time for our afternoon break anyway. I'll grab some snacks from the kitchen." Once everyone was settled, they began chatting. Tom mentioned how much he enjoyed the area and most of the people they had met. He said he would like to own a place like this someday. Joe and Sharon shared a look, and Joe turned to Tom, saying, "Tom, I think you would do well with a place like this. You connect with people well, and many of our employees and guests seem to like you. Sharon and I have been trying to sell our business for the last 2 years. Tom replied, "We learned about that this morning when we talked to the real estate agent. We were looking for a house with a view and a stream. Your agent mentioned you have a property that fits our needs." "I'm afraid I might have upset your agent with the offer I asked her to write," Tom continued. "Abby and I know this may not be the usual way to handle things, but we hope to discuss it with you and Sharon while we wait for her to arrive. We don't want to rush you or do anything unfair. We just wanted to see if we could agree on the price, especially if you could stay for a while to help us." Joe and Sharon looked hopeful. Their faces brightened, and Joe nodded, saying, "Tom, I think we could look into that, but with the economy like it is, you need a good credit score and a big down payment, or the banks won't approve a loan. We just can't manage the payments even with a solid down payment. We have had 2 other offers on the place, and they couldn't get financing. I might have to sell it piece by piece to move on. Well, if we can finalize the offer and sort out the details, I believe we can make this work. We would like at least 6 months of working together before you leave. If you allow us, we could also set up a more permanent role here. Abby and I want to travel some and don't want to be tied down." Joe shook his head and said, "No, Tom, we want to move on. While we're happy to teach you the ropes, we also want to travel. Katie might want to help out. She's our daughter, after all. She and her husband live close by, and she grew up here. They tried to buy the property, but the price was too high for them. I think it made her sad, and we drifted apart a bit when we couldn't support their loan. Still, she might be open to being the manager. She worked as our assistant for many years and has a degree in hotel and restaurant management." Just then, the real estate agent walked in, and the talks got more serious. By around 10:30 that night, they reached an agreement. Katie and her husband were invited to dinner to go over the deal, and she accepted the position with Tom and Abby. Tom offered her a 10% share in the lodge after 5 years if she met certain profit targets. Later that night, a tired Tom and Abby returned to their trailer. Once inside, Abby looked at Tom and said, "Tom, why didn't you want to talk to me about the money in front of the real estate agent? I know we haven't had that talk yet, but I didn't want you to think I was with you for your money. You didn't seem worried when we traveled, and I just went along with it. But now, Tom, this is a big expense, and we'll spend even more if we make any of those improvements you mentioned earlier. Are we sure we can handle this?" Tom chuckled and replied, "Abby, I'm sorry I haven't talked about the money. I was probably a bit like you, feeling unsure and not knowing how to bring it up. You thought the prenuptial agreement was there to protect any money you might inherit from your father and the small savings I have. You know that any money we each get stays with the person who received it if we ever divorce. I know you thought I was being kind with what I'd give you if we ever separated, but honestly, it would not be a lot. Abby, the total cost of this resort and the upgrades we're thinking about will only use about 10% of my cash." Abby stared at Tom in surprise and slowly sat down in a chair. She whispered, "10%? Oh my goodness." The next few weeks seemed to pass quickly. There were many papers to sign, books to look over, and auctions to plan. Joe and Sharon sold many personal items, gave some to their daughter Katie, or stored others away. They moved into a large room in the lodge while Tom and Abby settled into the main house. One of the first things Tom did was arrange for a tall stone wall around the house and yard for more privacy. They wanted to enjoy their time without worrying about being watched. They both agreed that having privacy would help them relax better during the summer. After 6 months, Tom and Abby had learned everything they needed to know about the business. Katie managed most of the daily tasks, but they still wanted to understand the operations to protect their investment, especially if Katie wasn't available. In July, over the Independence Day holiday, Tom and Abby went home for some rest. After cooling off in the pool, Abby swam over to Tom and shared her joy. "Oh, Tom, thank you. This place is amazing. I have a wonderful man, a lovely home, and great friends. I love you so much." They exchanged sweet words and enjoyed splashing in the water together. Their bond grew as they appreciated the time spent side by side. Tom knelt in the water and smiled as Abby relaxed next to him. He always valued their time together and the special connection they shared. Abby opened her eyes and said, "Come here, you. I need you to get back to work." She playfully pulled Tom closer, guiding him to sit beside her comfortably. They exchanged smiles, a quiet understanding passing between them. As they enjoyed their time together, Tom felt warmth and companionship. They moved in sync, each aware of the other's needs, creating a rhythm that showed their close bond. Their laughter and gentle touches filled the air as they cherished the moment. Eventually, they both felt content. Tom leaned forward and gave Abby a soft kiss before shifting to his side, inviting her to cuddle against him. Abby smiled at Tom, grateful for the affection they shared. "Tom," Abby said softly, "I had to go to the doctor this morning." Tom nodded, encouraging her to go on. "He said the antibiotics I took a couple of months ago might have affected my birth control, and I'm going to have a baby." Tom paused, taking in the news. He was surprised, realizing how important this moment was. He looked at Abby and saw a mix of feelings on her face. "Abby, I love you. I love our child. This is a surprise, but we can handle this together." A sense of relief washed over Abby, and she cuddled tighter against him. Their bond grew stronger as they embraced the future together, drifting off to sleep under the shade of the trees surrounding their dream home. As the years passed, they welcomed a son, whom they named Thomas Howard. He became a joy in their lives, sharing their love for the resort. After college, he studied hotel and restaurant management and returned to help run the lodge, allowing his parents to retire and enjoy their golden years. Tom had not heard from Julia or his daughter Carrie since the wedding reception. His son Harold mentioned that Julia left her car on their way home and vanished. Harold often visited the lodge and eventually moved his wife into a home built on the property to stay close to his father in retirement.